Yeah, that was certainly, out of my control, out of my hands, and that's the business part of it. So I understand that, and, my job is to prepare to play as well as I can, help the team win games, and that's certainly what I'm focused on.
Was it disappointing that they didn't pick it up?
It just kind of is what it is, and you're focused on preparing to play as well as you can, and that's my goal. That's what my focus is on.
That's Daniel Jones, the quarterback of the New York Giants, at least for 2022. 2023, we don't know. The Giants made a strategic decision. They made a bet. I interviewed Joe Schoen, the GM of the Giants, a couple of weeks ago, and he didn't quite agree with my characterization that they're basically betting against Daniel Jones, but I kind of think they are. What they're saying is we're more comfortable assuming the risk that Daniel Jones plays so well this year that we're going to owe him franchise tag money or a new contract based on franchise tag money, which could be $33, $34 million next year, versus giving him $22 million guaranteed right now under the assumption that we're going to be happy to pay him $22 million guaranteed in 2023. They are hedging the bet. They are placing the chip on the Daniel Jones isn't going to justify $22 million. As of right now, we think he won't be worth it, so we're not making that commitment, and we'll take our chances that he ends up playing so well that we're backed into a corner financially, and we'll call it a good problem to have. That was the phrase that Joe Schoen used, good problem to have, if he plays so well that they find themselves having to tag him, looking at $10, $11, or $12 million, Peter, in a financial difference if they end up deciding to use that tag.
Reminds me a little bit of what Brian Gutekunst, the Green Bay Packers general manager, said to me the weekend that they drafted Jordan Love. And that was, I said, what happens if Aaron Rodgers just plays great and Jordan Love never sees the field? And he said, hey, if he plays well enough so that he stays our quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years, great. Be a great problem to have. And it's exactly the same way here. Joe Schoen, John Mara, Brian Daboll would have been committing football idiocy, in my opinion, to guarantee Daniel Jones $22.3 million in 2023. Mike, you don't guarantee all that money to a player who clearly you have questions about after in his first 38 games, he's thrown 29 interceptions and fumbled 36 times. I mean, it's not smart. I think they're doing this exactly the right way. They're asking Daniel Jones, sing for your supper. That's what they're saying. And, look, if it works, and if Daniel Jones becomes their long-term quarterback, then the Giants are going to look back at this, at whatever it's going to cost them, $11 million, whatever it is, for this 1 year. They're going to look back at it, and they're going to say, we did what we had to do, and it is a infinitesimal price to pay for the guy who's going to be our quarterback going into the future.
And again, kudos to the folks who put the headlines on the graphics. My kind of snarky. The guy known as Danny Dimes, referred to as Danny Pennies, based upon his performance with the Giants. That is snarky, but I approve it completely. And, the reality, Peter, and this is where I have a hard time reconciling the Giants' comments with their actions. When Shane was introduced as the GM, John Mara found his way to a microphone in the scrum after the press conference and said all these glowing things about Daniel Jones. Brian Daboll, all sorts of glowing things about Daniel Jones. John Mara at the league meetings. Hey, you either have a quarterback here or you don't, and we think we have a pretty good one. What's $22 million if you think you have a pretty good quarterback? The market's north of 50 now. What $22 million?
But what if you decide if you really after this year? But what if he has a lousy year, and you have the third pick in the draft next year, and you're going to take a quarterback, And you're stuck exactly the same way the Carolina Panthers are stuck with Sam Darnold. You just don't do it. Forget what people say. What people say is malarkey. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can praise a guy all you want. The fact is, your decision speaks volumes. You don't believe in Daniel Jones right now, but you're giving him an opportunity to win the job long-term this year. Forget all the praise they're lavishing on him. You know, all that matters is how he plays.
One thing that we can agree on completely, totally, unconditionally, and unequivocally is there's an overabundance of BS. They can say we have no intention to trade Russell Wilson, and then they trade Russell Wilson. They can say all of these great things about Daniel Jones, and then they don't do the thing that would back up all of the superlatives heaped upon Daniel Jones, which is extend his contract at $22 million. And you're right, cautionary tale. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. The Browns and the Panthers both stuck with guys who have equal salaries of $18.8 million fully guaranteed. First and third picks, respectively, Mayfield and Darnold in the 2018 draft. That's what they get in their fifth-year option. And the Browns and the Panthers surely wish in hindsight they hadn't exercised those options. The Bears didn't exercise the fifth-year option on Mitchell Trubisky, and they were glad they didn't. So, again, if he plays so well this year that they have themselves a franchise quarterback, that he finally has shown them something, if he shows them something enough times that they say, man, he is something, just like Lloyd Braun. That Lloyd Braun is something. That Daniel Jones is something.
He's something.
They'll happily pay him. They'll happily pay him. And they won't regret the fact that they could have had him for $22 million, even if they have to pay him $34 million under the franchise tag. Here's Brian Daboll, coach of the Giants, from this week on how he wants to see Daniel Jones play in 2022.
We want to make sure we protect the ball. But again, you can't go out there and play, afraid. Be smart, not reckless, if you will. If he's got the right, if he's got a shot on the right read, let it go. There's going to be things that happen in every game. The defense is going to make a good play. There might be a tip ball. We're going to have to do a good job of taking care of the football, but I want him to turn it loose.
Here's another reason to turn it loose. One of the biggest flaws in Daniel Jones' game, Peter, has been he holds on to the ball too long. That clock in his head does not go off. The alarm does not go off. That's why he's had so many fumbles. You've seen him get hit in the pocket while he's holding the football. The ball comes out. You got to get rid of it. You got to accelerate that decision-making process. And year 4, look, I don't know what is a fair number of years before we decide pass or fail on a young quarterback. I've said before, and I said recently, if the standard that applies to NFL quarterbacks now had applied to Terry Bradshaw, he'd have been back in Shreveport pumping gas before he ever threw the pass that became the Immaculate Reception. We may have said that last Friday for all I can remember. But 4 years in today's NFL, if you don't figure it out by year 4 as a quarterback, you're done. So this is the year. And it's unfortunate for Jones that it's his first year with Daboll, and you get this revolving door of coaches and offensive coordinators, but at some point, you just got to rise above it and get it done. And that's what they're going to expect him to do. And Daboll, who showed that he could get a lot out of Josh Allen, is going to try to get a lot out of Daniel Jones.
The best thing that happened to Daniel Jones is John Mara said to Joe Shane, basically, you pick a coach. And Mara and Steve Tisch had to agree, obviously, but Joe Shane picked this coach. And so now, there are some adults in the room. Joe Shane has made some replacements on his scouting staff. Now you're going to have someone else running the franchise other than a guy who has been ensconced in giantdom, which, other than the fact that, Jerry Reese had 2 marvelous years in his tenure. The Giants, since the departure of Ernie Accorsi, have not been cloaked in greatness. So to me, I look at what's happening right now is, if you're Daniel Jones, the unfortunate thing is this could be the first and only year you get under people who really know what they're doing. And so unfortunately for him, he might be one and done. But I do think that he has the best chance that he's had right now with who they drafted and who is coaching and who is calling the plays. He's got his best chance to succeed since he's been there. And look, I'll say one other thing. The Giants last year paid Kenny Golladay a ransom when they did not need to do that, period. And that is that's on the sins of the previous general manager, Dave Gettleman. They also drafted kind of an immature and irresponsible receiver in Kadarius Toney. And I don't care what they say about Kadarius is part of our future, and yeah, he's good, and he's back practicing with us and everything. I don't know. I just see them at some point, probably at the end of the year, moving on from Kadarius Toney. I don't. He hasn't shown me any signs so far that he is, quote, with the program, end quote. But we'll see. He's got this year to either show it or not show it. But those two guys are going to be really, really important to what Daniel Jones does this year. They need those two guys, and they're lucky now that they appear to have two young, good bookend tackles to protect Daniel Jones. So it's a crucial year for him, but I think it's easily the best chance he's had in his 4 years with the Giants.
And you throw in Saquon Barkley, who has not been healthy since he was the pick between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in 2018. He had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage as a rookie. He's had injuries, whether it's ankle, torn ACL. He hasn't been the same guy. This is his chance in his fifth year, where they picked up the option and they're paying him more than $7 million. And there was some possibility of a trade, but at the end of the day, who's going to pay him $7 million when you consider the issues he's had physically in a position that is very physically demanding, when there are so many young running backs out there who don't have that injury history? So if Barkley can have a big year, if the offensive line can get it done, if the defense is better, there's a lot of ifs in that. But the Giants will find out one way or the other whether or not Daniel Jones is their guy for 2023. And if they have to pay him more than $22 million, significantly more than $22 million, because he's had a great year and they've decided he's the guy, then they're willing to do it, because it will mean that they have their quarterback situation finally solved. Otherwise, all bets are off, and they're going to be one of those teams that's looking to free agency, trades, and the draft in 23 as they try to improve the team.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.